Hey everyone, welcome to AI Innovation in Veterinary Medicine, a new podcast, a new episode today here. I have Dr. Christopher Pinard and Kuan-Chuen Wu here today with me in the podcast. Thank you so much for coming, guys. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having us, Kevin.
Awesome. Awesome. This is the first time that we do a three-person podcast. We'll see how it goes, but I had to talk to these two guys. I've been wanting to talk to Dr. Christopher Pinard for a long time, and I'm grateful that Juan was able to come as well here. So I think in the interest of getting a conversation going and people knowing who you guys are, Chris, why don't you start us off with an intro, and then Juan, maybe you can also share after Chris, what's your background and what are you guys working on?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Dr. Chris Pinard. I'm a medical oncologist by training here in Toronto. And I was actually lucky enough to do a clinical trials internship down at Colorado State University and then finished up my residency back at Guelph, where I actually did my original DVM training. And then I was very fortunate to actually work in the breast cancer AI lab over at Sunnybrook Research Institute for a postdoc fellowship, actually, for the last several years, which was really engaging to see kind of what's going on in the pathomics and in sort of human medical space. And then have been working very closely back with the University of Guelph as an adjunct professor and also as a medical oncologist here in Toronto, just doing a lot of AI research. And then that sort of amalgamated after meeting Dr. Wu, who you'll talk to in a few seconds, and I'll let him introduce himself, but really amalgamated into AniML.Health, a company that we built to, like VetRec, build and do research on machine learning solutions for veterinary teams and the vet profession as a whole.
That's awesome.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be with you. My name is Kuan-Chuen Wu. My PhD is in mechanical engineering with data science. I've really enjoyed working and co-founding with Dr. Christopher Pinard, AniML.Health, which is a veterinary AI healthcare startup. And we are revolutionizing the veterinary healthcare using AI products and solutions. And we're collaborating with a lot of different opportunities and partners. So it's a very exciting time. And I've been involved with AI for a while now, and that's how I met Chris.
Awesome. Yeah, it's I sometimes meet people that ask me like, hey, what's an LLM, what's ChatGPT, and I always tell them like, look, there's stuff before that, like ChatGPT is not the AI, like before ChatGPT 2 came in, there's other stuff here. So I actually would love to segue into that a little bit. Like, how did you guys get into AI initially, and where did this background came from, to develop what you're building, but like, how did you get this initial knowledge on AI and that training that you had?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of a natural transition. Like, to be honest, I've been a nerd my entire life. I love video games. I love coding. I used to do HTML back in the day when I was in
There you
grade
go.
school. I did the website for our like public school at one point, but I kind of lost my coding after a bit after trying to get into vet school and
Yeah.
grinding that out for so many years. But I think it's like it really kind of transitioned from there in starting to see, even before ChatGPT, there was sort of this impetus where we start to see this sort of big increase in publications and also people starting to use just regular old algorithmic evaluation in a clinical context. And that really got me started. But then it was my postdoctoral fellowship following then in private practice, also being able to take the course that Quan taught me, honestly, and being able to learn from him and his expertise to say, okay, yeah, it's really cool what NVIDIA and the self-driving cars are doing, but like really starting to flip that switch of how are we going to actually start to use that in a medical context, and that's really what got my start. And since then, I've been able to do multiple courses, not only through Quan, but then also online, and then really just got my full stack development certificate as well. So, really just enjoy doing it. It's a whole new way of thinking, and it's super fun.
Yeah. So Quan, you're a professor of you have to teach us something here, like no, like in all seriousness, like what's this course that Chris is talking about, and how did you get to being a professor here for teaching this concept?
Oh, yeah. Well, I teach for Inspirit AI, and it's really a blast right now because there's so much need for AI education around the world. I'm currently in Lima, Peru. And previous to this, I was in Santiago, Chile, just teaching young people how to use AI for societal good and teaching them both the theory and the practical coding.
Yeah.
And Chris was in one of my classes at the college and beyond professional level. So that was a program called the AI Innovators Program. And
Okay.
he was top of cream of the crop, top of class. And there we do it we study AI at the professional level. So topics such as graph neural networks, drug discovery using AI, and related topics at that level, LSTMs for natural language processing, and so on. But my background originally in AI was in a galaxy far, far away, long, long ago at Harvard. I remember picking up a book from the library on the original perceptron. At that point, it was like a single model, and the computational capabilities were not there yet to scale it up to billions and trillions of
Yeah.
perceptrons. But that's when I first started building up my background in math, statistics, hardcore engineering, and physics, and so on, which enabled the modern era of jumping right into my PhD work
Mm.
involving data science. And I think one of my models was a particle filter for smoothing signals in my PhD research. So then I really got into the modern era of AI during the PhD program. And then after graduation, I started working in online advertising AI industry. And from there, I moved on to other sectors, but really AI, and then also teaching as a passion.
Awesome. Well, that's quite the experience. Quite the experience. I think both of you have a great experience. And we were chatting briefly about the podcast that you guys complement each other very well, right? And you both intersect at the AI level. But we have Chris here, who's been in the vet field for a long time as well, and Juan, you have all this math and systems engineering perspective, and you guys are now joining forces, if you will, to build AniML.Health and to further and augment research in veterinary medicine, which is a topic dear to my heart as well in some of the things that we're doing with VetTrek. But I think before I share a little bit more from that angle, I wanted to hear from you guys. Maybe Chris, you can start. Like, AniML.Health, I've seen a couple of videos and a couple of articles out there, but how are you thinking the future of the company, or the current state of the company in advancing research in academia for veterinary medicine? And what are some of the things that maybe you're tangibly like actually doing today? And yeah, I actually would love to work with you guys in some capacity in the future, but I would want to hear from you. How are you thinking these things?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton that we can do, and I'd be really excited to keep that conversation going beyond today. And I
Yeah.
think, announcing that on this podcast today,
Yeah.
let's do it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough of us. The AI space in VetMed is pretty narrow right now, and not that there's not a lot of people in
Yeah.
it, but
There's
there's a
people.
select group of people that are doing this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's time we all start working together to build something really beautiful. And I've always been sort of a person that the more the better, and so I think let's do that for sure. But in terms of, the way that we work, I do kind of see us like the veterinary profession of this sort of innovation hub. Like, let's take these real tangible problems and build something really exciting around it. And, with our first product that we've released just a few weeks ago, Hachiko, which is our medical record summarizer, that's sort of the first step that we've taken to take all of these wonderful ideas, build something that is catered to the veterinary space. I don't want to say for the first time, but really from a textual standpoint, it is. You guys have your AI scribe technology, which is very, very good and very, very top of class for the veterinary teams. But there's a lot of opportunity and fruit that we can really kind of work together on. From a research side, one of the first papers that we published just earlier this year was actually on language modeling. And what we did was we took a human medical named entity recognizer that was actually trained on some of the largest medical data sets available here at the University of Toronto. And we asked a simple question of, can we translate that NER and use it in a veterinary context?
Right.
It couldn't. It was horrible. And honestly, to my surprise. And so what we actually ended up doing was not handwritten, but myself and an intern went through and methodically went through and we labeled every part of every PDF. We had over 2,000 entities that we ended up working through. And what we found was, of course, there's great overlap human to human. But when you look at the overlap of being able to actually extract those entities and categorize those entities, the precision recall F1 score were horrible. So what it really reinforced for us and why we sort of went full steam ahead on Hachiko is we need something that is really catered to the veterinary
Yeah.
space, because
Yeah.
you can't just grab GPT, you can't just grab these others, especially for text and
Yeah.
medical records. And that's how we jumped in. But some other projects that we're working on and really excited about, and we've got a few videos on YouTube, like if you look up Voxel 51 and some of the other groups, we're doing a lot of computer vision work. So one of the first grants that we got funded for several months or several years ago, actually now, it's been kind of a slow burn, is taking computer vision and utilizing that on CT scan and actually pre-predicting metastatic lymph nodes and head and neck cancers in dogs. So we created a data set that was only 50 dogs, but we actually used some baseline machine learning techniques to overcome those data hurdles because of such a small data set to actually utilize a model to predict metastasis. Without me carrying on sentences for too long, I think one of the really interesting things and what people aren't talking enough about is, especially if we get more technical into this, is that we are continuously so fraught with these problems in the veterinary space that our data pools are so small. And we need better and more tangible mathematical and abilities to actually overcome that, because a data set with 50 cases, like the amount of overfitting that's going to happen and our ability to apply that to the rest of the space is not possible.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
a side point, but
Because significance and like you still need like, no, I get it, I actually agree with that too. That's very interesting, very interesting. Any thoughts on that, Kwan? And like, how are you guys, because I we were also briefly touching upon this before the podcast, and I don't want you guys to spill any beans here in publicly in the podcast, but like, Kwan, like, how are you guys thinking in terms of driving these proprietary systems internally that go beyond GPT wrappers maybe, and further advanced to what Chris's point is saying, specific things for the veterinary medicine. I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Kevin. Our technology is expandable and interoperable with other products and platforms. So we plan to provide an API interface to it so that any product can invoke our API and get back our high quality clinician approved medical record summary. And
Nice.
for us, accuracy, reliability, and consistency, trustworthiness are top of list for our users. And we have a system in place, both technologically as well as procedurally, in order to ensure that our summaries remain top quality for our users. And this approach makes it easier to fulfill our vision of really providing the best medical record summarizer out there and have it play well with other products on the market. Just imagine all the wealth of information that's locked away, hidden inside the medical record databases
Yeah.
around the planet.
Yeah.
And a lot of those insights are lacking the summary aspect of insights into the actual textual and multimodal nature of the data. That's untapped potential.
Yeah.
And Hachiko, our AI product that Chris mentioned, is our entrance into making that unlock happen.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic, and particularly this, the multimodal piece and the computer vision stuff that you were talking about, Chris, because for us, I think it's inevitable, like us and other competitors that we have as well, like getting into that past AI scribe rather and be more like of an AI assistant sort of thing, and we also have our own medical record summary and whatnot, but I think that the key thing that I'm really particularly interested to you guys is the approach that you guys have taken, and maybe even including stuff like multimodality and computer vision to further augment the data set to get even better insights, right? Because, we also have some insights that we're working in and whatnot. And part of the partnership that we've done with universities that, I know, Chris, that it's particularly a good angle to go into the research. But I think the computer vision side of things is something that, we frankly haven't spent too much time on. Doesn't mean that we won't, but like, I think also, as a startup, and you guys will appreciate this, is you can't do everything, right? Like there has to be like scope things, like sure, eventually we'll go and do this, but like, and so I think that approach of like really augmenting the data set that you guys are thinking through, I think it's particularly cool. And in the end, there's going to be multiple platforms, right? Like that people might choose, different types of AI scribe or their summary or insights and stuff. And I think it's particularly exciting where this thing is going, and a nice segue into my next question that I wanted to ask you guys, which is, where are we going? I attended a conference a couple months ago. It was by Hive, NAVC, about the
Yep.
future of education for veterinary medicine. It was actually super, super insightful. Highly recommend if you want to join next year or whatever. But, one of the things that were mentioned there is computer vision, actually, and wearables. And where else are we going with AI over the next 5-10 years, now that the LLM boom craze is sure underway, right? But there's so much more, and would love to hear your perspectives as experts, maybe in this field, of where you think. Projections is always a risky game, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
over project, but also you don't want to under, like in all seriousness, like, where do you think we're going, I guess, in VetMed with AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. One of the things I love about this space, obviously being in it for so long, is that it is so innovative. There's an opportunity, like I see VetMed as this sort of pre-healthcare incubator, basically. We can come up with new ideas,
Right.
iterate super quickly if we've got the right people there. There's so many less guardrails that are required to actually iterate in the space, whether that be commercially or even, from a research perspective. However, I think part of the problem is I think we are actually going to see those guardrails come into place. And I'm not necessarily thinking that that's a bad thing. I think we need to be very careful how we implement. But I think not only are we going to see rules and regulations actually come in and become more stringent that we as companies, we as researchers are all going to need to work within, but I think it'll be better for our patients, better for the profession. But I think what's really interesting is, as you mentioned, like these like pet pace and some of these other collars that are integrating AI into them. You're right, though. Computer vision is actually like one of the lowest hanging fruits that we can even think about. And I think once we start to get into the multimodality of it all, we're actually going to see true clinician workflow changes. There was actually an interesting study that came out in the human space like just a few weeks ago that actually iterated that AI scribes actually save very little time, like maybe a 10% time improvement, but it's about perceived value. And the clinicians feel less burnt out. They feel like they're making a difference in their day. And so I think even though investors and anybody throwing money at you is going to say, well, what's the actual time saved here? I think in a profession that's riddled with administrative burden, any sort of burnout, mental health challenges, I think we're going to end up seeing these companies like ours come together to build multimodal tools that are really going to change from start of consult to finish of consult and to all the way till I get home, change really the trajectory of how we practice.
That's fantastic. Honestly, I really like how you put it. And I actually would love if you have that paper, that article, so that I can actually link it for people to see it. I think
absolutely.
A lot of times, people ask me, people that maybe are not in the space or whatever, it's like, well, how much are you helping, or how much is it really value? And I'm like, where do I start? Maybe this is a good article, but I always just point them to our testimonials. That has been like go to places like it's not, don't trust me, like trust the people that are using it. So
100%.
So any thoughts here as we close up, Kuan, in terms of where are we going with this technology in this field?
I see AI for personalization in the online advertising sector. That is key, but also here in the veterinary AI field, where our product can learn about our users and adapt to their styles and preferences, and also more broadly in the education. So AI for education, the AI itself can adapt to the learner's preferences, weaknesses, interests, and areas of strength to reinforce those, for example. So I think that there's high potential for AI, and especially computer vision, where we can use feedback from and signals from the webcams or device cameras in order to get to know our most important people, the users, better.
I think it's really interesting too. Like, I know we got to close out soon, but I wanted to sort of reiterate to the future. Like, I think AI in education, not only education about AI as veterinarians become more used to and learning about AI, but like how are we going to actually integrate that into teaching the next generation of veterinarians? And I'm a millennial, but we've got the Gen Xers and Gen Zers, and everybody's coming all the way through that honestly don't like talking on the phone, don't like talking to people. They like text it. Like, how is that actually going to change practice moving forward? And I think we're going to get to a point, where you're going to walk into a clinic and an AI camera is going to recognize you and your dog. And I know Kwan's talked about this before. And you're going to sit down in the waiting room, and then somebody's going to finally come out to get you because they already knew that you entered and they already knew what they were doing for you. But I think like training veterinary students, like we actually implemented a GPT, just like one of the mini GPTs, and actually could allow students, we haven't actually done this across all students yet, but you could train it on veterinary textbooks and then quite literally have students interact with potential case scenarios. That's a huge opportunity to train students that, like, I did the fake client interactions, and trust me, it didn't prepare me for the real world. So there's real opportunities here where we can actually really prepare ourselves and prepare the next generation. It's kind of cool.
I love that you said that, because that's something that we've actually also been working on, and I love how you framed it, which is not only educate people about AI, but infusing AI in the education.
Yes. Yep.
And as a byproduct, you learn about AI.
Yep.
So I really like how you put it that way. And we're adamant there as well. Like we have a mission to also make that happen. So if I didn't say it enough, thank you so much for joining here, Chris, Kuan. And I do think that we should, continue the conversation outside of the podcast as well, and see what the two companies can build for, improving the quality of excellence here in medicine and the well-being of veterinarians. So thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.